Episode 13, the Tarascans, defenders of Michoacán approximately 1100 to 1530 CE. Whispers of the Ancient Civilizations of the Americas, Segment 1. A kingdom beyond the Aztec gaze. In the rugged western highlands of present-day Mexico, far from the grandeur of Tenochtitlan and the shadow of Aztec imperial ambition, rose a civilization of quiet strength and strategic genius. The Tarascans, known as the Purépecha in their native tongue, emerged as formidable architects of resistance, builders of power, and guardians of a unique cultural identity that defied even the mightiest empires of Mesoamerica, while the Aztecs expanded their dominion across the Valley of Mexico and beyond. They met a wall they could never tear down. The Tarascan state, unlike other city-states that fell or paid tribute, the Purépecha created a militarized society capable of standing its ground. They were not mere survivors in the shadows of empires. They were a kingdom in their own right. Segment 2, the heart of Michoacán. Nestled amid lakes, volcanoes, and pine-covered hills, the Tarascan capital of Tzintzuntzan, meaning place of the hummingbirds, sat on the shores of Lake Pátzcuaro. Its 5 massive yakutas, or stepped pyramids, still loomed silently, crowned with rounded tops unlike the pointed temples of their neighbors. These were not only ceremonial spaces, but symbols of divine kingship and social unity. Tzintzuntzan was one of 3 major cities in the Purépecha Empire, along with Iguazú and Pátzcuaro. Together, these urban centers formed a triangle of power that anchored a confederation, extending across the modern states of Michoacán, Jalisco, and Guanajuato. The landscape defined the people. Steep terrain and scattered valleys required creative political solutions and a unifying spiritual vision. Segment 3. An empire forged in iron and fire. What set the Tarascans apart was not only their defiance of Aztec conquest but their superior use of metalwork. While most Mesoamerican societies primarily relied on stone, the Purépecha harnessed copper, bronze, and even silver. Their blacksmiths and metallurgists were pioneers, crafting tools, ornaments, and weapons far more advanced than those of their rivals. This metallurgical edge translated into military might. The Tarascan army was equipped with bronze-tipped spears, battle axes, and metal armor, giving them an unmatched advantage in combat. Their warriors were disciplined and well-organized, trained not only for battle but for defense of the homeland. They maintained fortified outposts along the frontiers, especially where Aztec incursions loomed. It is no wonder that the Aztecs, for all their brutality and ambition, never conquered the Tarascan realm. Segment 4. The Kazonchi, sacred kingship and social order. At the top of the Purépecha social structure stood the Kazonchi, a sacred ruler, who governed through divine mandate and absolute authority. This king was both warrior and priest, guardian of the land and voice of the gods. The dynasty began with Tariochuri, a legendary figure who is said to have unified the scattered Purépecha communities into a cohesive force. Tariochuri's descendants expanded the kingdom, dividing administrative responsibilities among trusted relatives and elite governors. It was a system that balanced loyalty with efficiency, tribal kinship infused with statecraft. The Kazonchi resided in palaces adorned with murals and treasures. His court was filled with advisors, generals, scribes, and artisans. He oversaw tribute collection, rituals, judicial matters, and the distribution of metal goods. His rule rested on 3 pillars: religion, warfare, and tribute. Segment 5. The gods of fire and sky. The Purépecha pantheon was distinct from the Aztecs, a spiritual world rooted in nature's cycles, celestial forces, and ancestral spirits. Their supreme deity was Curicori, the god of fire and war, often associated with the sun and represented through flames, obsidian, and ritual fire offerings. Temples dedicated to Curicori were central to ceremonial life. Fire was more than symbolic, it was transformative, a purifier that connected mortals to the heavens. Other deities included Zaratanga, a moon goddess and protector of women, and god spirits of lakes, mountains, and trees. Priests conducted complex rituals that involved incense burning, offerings of food and animals, and in rare cases, human sacrifice, especially prisoners of war. But unlike the mass sacrifices of the Aztecs, Purépecha rituals emphasized balance, cycles, and renewal. Segment 6, Language, Art, and Everyday Life. The Purépecha language, still spoken by over 100,000 people today, is a linguistic isolate, meaning it has no known relation to any other language family in the Americas. This linguistic uniqueness reflects the cultural independence of the Tarascans. Their artisans produced elegant pottery with deep red and black glazes, feathered capes, and intricately woven textiles. Metal adornments including nose rings, pendants, and ear spools revealed the wearer's rank and connection to the divine. Commoners lived in adobe homes with thatched roofs, farming maize, beans, squash, and chili peppers. They fished the lakes, raised turkeys, and traded goods with neighboring peoples. Life was communal and seasonal, marked by festivals, harvests, and cycles of planting and celebration. Segment 7, Borders of Resistance, Tarascans versus Aztecs. The Tarascan-Aztec frontier was one of the most heavily militarized zones in pre-Columbian Mesoamerica. Along this volatile border, fortresses rose on mountain ridges, and patrols constantly scanned for Aztec scouts. The Tarascans had no illusions about their neighbors' ambitions, yet they held firm. Conflicts fled sporadically throughout the 15th century, particularly under the Aztec emperors Axayacatl and Ahuitzotl, both of whom launched expeditions into the western highlands. They sought to break the Tarascan barrier and seize its precious copper and obsidian resources. Every time they were driven back, Tarascan defenses were legendary, using natural geography and a well-planned system of roads and relay messengers. They could mobilize armies swiftly and strike at invaders with coordinated efficiency. Aztec chronicles themselves acknowledge the Tarascans' strength both in steel and in spirit. For the Tarascans, victory was not about conquest, it was about preservation. Their independence became a cultural badge of honor. Their defeat of Aztec aggression was not merely a political victory, but a spiritual affirmation of their divine right to exist, untouched by foreign domination. Segment 8, Infrastructure of an Empire. Like the Incas of South America, the Tarascans developed a far-reaching network of roads and storage depots to manage their vast realm. Though the terrain was difficult, full of mountains, rivers, and thick forests, they built bridges, carved trails through ravines, and organized a courier system using trained runners to carry messages across hundreds of kilometers. Administrative centers were set up in provincial towns where officials collected tribute, settled disputes, and coordinated trade. Tribute often came in the form of maize, cotton, metal goods, feathers, fish, and ceramics, each item carefully categorized and transported back to Tzintzuntzan. The economy was state-controlled in many ways, particularly when it came to metal production. Artisans were often attached to the royal court, producing goods for both religious ceremonies and elite consumption. Yet trade thrived as well, linking the Purépecha to distant cultures across Mesoamerica, from coastal salt traders to highland obsidian merchants. The infrastructure wasn't just economic, it was ideological. Roads connected not just places, but people to the center of power. In every corner of the empire, subjects were reminded they were part of something larger, a kingdom both earthly and sacred. Segment 9, The Arrival of the Spanish. When the Spanish arrived on the Mexican coast in 1519, the Aztec world stood in the spotlight of history. The Purépecha, watching from the west, observed cautiously. News of strangers with thundersticks and horses spread quickly across the trade routes and through emissaries. The last Kazomchi, Tangacchuan faced a difficult choice. Unlike the Aztecs, who resisted violently, Tangacchuan tried to adapt and negotiate. In 1522, shortly after the fall of Tenochtitlan, Spanish conquistador Cristobal de Olid entered Michoacán. Rather than engage in a suicidal war, the Tarascan ruler submitted diplomatically, offering gold and pledging allegiance. It was a strategic surrender, but one that could not prevent betrayal. Within a few years, Spanish encomenderos had seized control of Tarascan towns, looted sacred sites, and imposed forced labor. The delicate social balance of centuries crumbled under colonial pressure. By 1530, under the false pretense of rebellion, Tangaction II was executed by Spanish authorities, burned alive in a tragic echo of the fire god he once served. With his death, the political structure of the Tarascan state collapsed. Segment 10. Legacy among the Pines. Though the Tarascan kingdom ended with the Spanish conquest, the Purépecha identity endured. Their language survived. So did their crafts, customs, and oral traditions. Even today, in towns around Lake Pátzcuaro, artisans continue to shape copper with fire, weave intricate textiles, and perform age-old rituals passed down through generations. The rounded pyramids of Tzintzuntzan still rise under the sun, silent but not forgotten. They are reminders of a civilization that defied empire with intelligence, protected its borders with iron, and honored its gods with fire. The Purépecha were not the most expansive or famous of Mesoamerican civilizations, but they were among the most resilient in their refusal to submit to Aztec domination, in their mastery of metal, and in their strategic diplomacy. They carved out a legacy unlike any other. Segment 11. The unspoken artistry. Tarascan metalworking. Among all the Mesoamerican civilizations, the Tarascans stood apart in one extraordinary skill: metallurgy. While most Mesoamerican societies used metals sparingly and primarily for ornamental or ceremonial purposes, the Tarascans elevated metal into an industrial and militaristic asset. Their mastery of copper, silver, gold, and bronze placed them centuries ahead of their regional counterparts. Workshops near Lake Pátzcuaro produced tools, bells, tweezers, weapons, jewelry, and ceremonial artifacts. Copper axes, chisels, and fishhooks were not only common, but were traded widely across the region. Some archaeologists believe the Purépecha developed bronze alloying techniques, independently combining copper with arsenic or tin for superior hardness. But metallurgy was more than utilitarian. It was deeply symbolic. Gold represented the sun, copper the earth's blood. Smiths were held in spiritual regard, often working under ritual guidelines and choosing their materials with ceremonial precision. In a land where obsidian once ruled, the Tarascans embraced a new element, fire-hardened metal. Their forges glowed not just with heat, but with a distinctly Purépecha vision of progress. Segment 12. Fire, stone, and the sacred order. Tarascan spirituality revolved around fire, sun cycles, and a pantheon that emphasized natural forces over anthropomorphic deities. Temples dedicated to the fire god Curicori featured open-air braziers that burned continually, tended by priests who understood their flames. As living beings, priesthoods were deeply hierarchical. Some were responsible for tending sacred flames, others for interpreting celestial signs or conducting rituals aligned with the lunar calendar. Human sacrifice was part of their spiritual order, though practiced more selectively than in the Aztec world. The cosmology of the Purépecha envisioned the world as one connected whole: the lakes, mountains, forests, and volcanoes, each pulsing with divine energy. The ruler was seen as a mediator between the human realm and the cosmic order. Every public ceremony, from coronations to harvest feasts, was designed to maintain harmony with the gods and the land. This fusion of belief and governance gave the Tarascan state a remarkable sense of unity. Loyalty to the Kazonchi was not just political, it was cosmic. To serve the ruler was to serve the very balance of the world. Segment 13. Women of Power, the forgotten role of Tarascan women. In the historical records preserved by Spanish chroniclers and indigenous oral tradition, women in Tarascan society held meaningful roles, both within domestic life and elite structures. Nobility often included women in lineage, inheritance, and priestesses played critical roles in maintaining temple rituals and fire ceremonies. Textile production, a cornerstone of the economy, was primarily a woman's domain. From spinning to weaving, women created intricate garments with iconography that carried deep spiritual significance. Their clothing identified rank, tribal affiliations, and religious status. In some towns, women served as market supervisors, midwives, or local administrators. While patriarchy dominated the political hierarchy, there is evidence of balance and complementary roles within society, particularly in the realm of agriculture, healing, and ritual. The stories of Tarascan women, resilient, skilled, and spiritually connected offer a fuller picture of a civilization whose strength rested not only in its warriors and kings, but in its households and hearths. Segment 14. Collapse and Continuity. The Spanish conquest shattered the Tarascan state, but not its soul. After Tang Akshan II's execution, Spanish rule rapidly dismantled the administrative framework. Tribute became taxation. Temples were torn down and churches built atop them. Yet, even amid oppression, the Purépecha people adapted with quiet resilience. They preserved their language. They retained their names for lakes, hills, and gods. They folded ancient traditions into Catholic practices, veiling ancestral rituals beneath the rosary and candlelight. Resistance was not always armed. It was cultural. It was spiritual. It was in the act of speaking Purépecha to one's children, of tending the sacred fires in kitchens, and of passing down the stories of kings and lakes and mountains that breathe. Even today, in festivals like the Night of the Dead Noche de Muertos, Purépecha traditions echo with ancient rhythms. The spirits of their ancestors walk again among them, just as they have for centuries. Undimmed by conquest. Segment 15. Tarascan echoes, a civilization remembered. To stand among the Yakutas of Tzintzuntzan is to hear silence charged with memory. The round pyramids, so unlike any others in Mesoamerica, whisper of a people who built their own path distinct, proud and defiant. The Tarascans remind us that greatness is not always measured in expansion or glory, but in resistance, innovation, and identity. While others sought conquest, the Purépecha perfected defense. While others erected towering temples, they forged empires of copper. While others fell to the Aztecs, they endured until the last, against foreign odds. In their story lies the story of countless nations across the Americas. Civilizations shaped by the land, challenged by time, but never truly lost. The Purépecha still walk the hills of Michoacán. Their language still flows. Their crafts still flourish. Their memory lives not in ruins, but in rhythm, flame, and voice. They are not forgotten. They endure. And so, their voices fade into silence once more. But the stones they raised, the stories they etched into earth and memory, still whisper beneath our feet. Thank you for joining us on this chapter of Whispers of the Ancients. Until next time, may the past continue to speak, and may we continue to listen.